Valkyrie Digital Assets has refiled its application for a spot Bitcoin exchange traded fund. Of course, they already have a futures Bitcoin exchange traded fund on the NASDAQ, so this follows up on top of that one. They've refiled using the Coinbase surveillance agreement that was first noted or at least whispered with BlackRock. The SEC went back to all these people who had filed ETFs and said, we need you to name whoever's in the surveillance agreement. So now all those refilings have begun, with Valkyrie being one of those. Of course, the market is turning on a lot of this news. Bitcoin peaked over $31,000 over the weekend, and it's been pretty strong on headwaves that, hey, there might be a spot ETF in the future for Bitcoin. Wendy, I'll throw it over to you for your take.
I feel like BlackRock was playing 4D chess with the entire market, because wasn't BlackRock the first one to kind of kick this trend off when it came to filing for Bitcoin spot ETFs? And they, the breaking news was that the BlackRock Bitcoin spot ETF was rejected, when in fact it wasn't rejected. It just needed to be modified. But I feel like they purposely left that area blank for the SSA, for their central intermediary. And they kind of needed to wait for somebody to clap back, and then everybody else kind of followed suit. So I think it's very interesting that they named Coinbase, considering that Coinbase is currently going head to head with the SEC. And again, at the end of the day, I'm not a big fan of a Bitcoin ETF, because I feel like it's going to continue to make Americans more lazy, and we're not going to safely custody or even need to learn how to safely custody our Bitcoin. That's another argument. But at the same time, I also think that it's very interesting that they picked Coinbase, considering all of the drama that's happening. And I'm really here for the tea. This is probably the best novella I have ever seen recently.
It kind of is a novella, Wendy. So Coinbase being named in this, I think, was a surprise to everyone, given that the SEC came after Coinbase in their lawsuit. But they're being named as the surveillance sharing partner in, I believe, all of the ETFs that refiled, right? So BlackRock refiled, listing Coinbase as the partner. A few others followed suit. I believe almost all of those on that graphic that we see on the screen there. But according to BlackRock's filing that came in just a few days ago, Coinbase has represented 56% of the dollar to Bitcoin trading on US-based platforms, and that's why BlackRock chose. I feel like BlackRock is leading the way. I feel like and this is just a feeling, I have no information. It feels like BlackRock must have some information, and that's why they issued this filing. And then it feels like everyone is just following what they do. And all the analysts in the market are saying that they are hopeful that this ETF comes to fruition. Of course, like Will mentioned, Bitcoin is holding above $30,000. I have to mention, Canada has had an ETF for a very, very long time. And so all of this excitement, I don't know, Will, is it going to fizzle away once this ETF gets approved, if and when it does?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, the one thing I want to go back to is talking about, like, does BlackRock have information that other people don't? And I actually sort of want to push back on that, because I don't think they do have more information than others. Like, there's a lot of people out there who've been filing these ETFs for years, but they've been going up against an SEC that didn't want to see this product go through. What BlackRock does have is political edge, right? They have, like, the clout, they have the size, and they have the politicians in a lot of ways. A lot of people use BlackRock. BlackRock is one of the largest issuers, if not the largest issuer of ETFs. And so for them to look at this market and say, like, we want an ETF, probably means that there's probably been the ability to have an ETF in this market for a while. Coinbase has been around for quite a while. It's been a public company for over 2 years now. It made sense for BlackRock to step in when the timing was right for the product, not necessarily just because they have more information than other people. And the surveillance sharing agreement, that maybe was like an edge that other people didn't have. But at the same time, those things are not uncommon either. And I'm frankly a little confused why people didn't come up with that earlier, if that's all they really needed was some sort of surveillance agreement on market manipulation. If you go back to, like, the earlier ETFs, that's always been the critique, is that the Bitcoin market can easily be manipulated. But if you have this agreement, maybe there's a way around it. Wendy?
But, like, this is the thing, though, like, everything is so heavily manipulated, especially traditional finance and all the insider information that goes along. And I guess that it's like the SSA is like this public facade that they have to do as lawmakers or public servants, but isn't it kind of silly? And I feel like the reason why there wasn't an SSA listed in the first place is because the SEC has literally gone head to head with every single crypto exchange in America for one reason or the other. And the lawsuits are just pretty hilarious and frivolous at this time. But I think that that's why they didn't list it initially, is they probably didn't want, I don't know. I feel like they were waiting for the SEC to respond, and that's probably an internal conversation that went down, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. I just want to point out quickly that in previous filings, Will, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's taken the SEC much longer to respond with feedback. Here, we had BlackRock file, we had a few other firms file. The SEC came back, said this is inadequate, and they had the chance to make those amendments and file again. I don't feel like we've seen the SEC respond so quickly in the past.
No, I think you're right there. I think it sort of depends on the sort of filing that we're being done. This one, it was like sort of a quick note being like, hey, you guys need to share the partner with this surveillance agreement. And so they were able to refile pretty quickly. But overall, the SEC has taken forever to get back on these things, which has delayed any sort of push with an ETF, right? If you put an ETF into the market and then you have to wait forever for the SEC to get back to you, well, basically just spending millions of dollars on lawyer fees and not having any revenue in return.